These videos will explain how to complete a SEND35 appeal application form. This video is part 1 and will explain when the SEND35 form should be used and what to include in sections 1 to 9 of the appeal form. The link to part 2 is in the video description. A SEND35 form is used for most types of appeals relating to education, health and care plans. This includes refusal to issue decisions where the local authority have agreed to conduct a needs assessment but then decide not to issue an EHCP. Refusal to reassess, where you have asked the local authority to do a reassessment of your child or young person's needs and they have refused. Appeals against Section B, Section F and/or Section I of a final EHCP. Section B is the description of your child's educational needs. Section F is the description of the educational provision which should be in place for your child, and Section I is the educational placement. And finally, cease to maintain decisions, where the local authority have decided the EHCP is no longer needed. You can also ask the tribunal to make recommendations about the health and social care sections of the plan, but in order to do this, you will need to also be appealing either Section B, Section F or Section I. We're going to go through the appeal form section by section. The first 2 pages of the appeal form give you information about what the form is used for, your deadlines to appeal, and whether you need a mediation certificate. You will need a mediation certificate for all appeals apart from Section I only appeals. So if you are only appealing the educational setting and you are happy with all other parts of the plan, you will not need a mediation certificate. These pages also suggest making sure you have some documents to hand before you start completing the form. This includes a copy of the local authority decision letter, a copy of the final version of the EHCP if you have one, and the Section K documents. These are the reports gathered in the needs assessment. You should also have your mediation certificate to hand while completing the form if your appeal requires one. Section 1 asks for your child or young person's name, gender and date of birth. Section 2 asks for the details of the person appealing. This could be a parent or carer acting on behalf of a child aged 0 to 16 or a young person. Young people between the ages of 16 and 25 have the right to appeal for themselves. Sometimes it's not appropriate for them to do so, in which case an alternative person can act on their behalf. You will then need to complete some basic details about the person appealing, including their name, phone number, email address, relationship to the child or young person, and their address. Section 3 asks for details of other parents or carers who have not already been mentioned. Section 4 asks for any information about a representative. You have the right to appoint a representative, usually a legal representative, but you don't have to. Most parents do not have representatives when appealing to SEND Tribunal. The representative is someone who can act on your behalf and receive information about the appeal and respond to it for you. The tribunal will only contact your representative. Section 5 asks if you have an advocate. Advocates are usually used where it's a young person who is lodging the appeal, but parents can also have advocates. Again, you don't have to have one, and many parents proceed with their appeal without an advocate. Section 6 asks who the tribunal should communicate with. This must be someone who is already named on the form. Tick the box for who you want them to communicate with and then fill in their details again. Section 7 asks if there is anyone else with parental responsibility who has not already been mentioned on the form. This could be another person or another agency, such as a local authority if the child is looked after. Add in their details and tick the boxes to show whether they are aware of the appeal. If not, you will need to tell the tribunal why. This could be because the other person does not have any contact with the child. Section 8 is where you say what you are appealing. There are lots of options to tick here, so it's important to check each of them and make sure you're ticking the one relevant to your appeal. The first section gives you broad options. The local authority refused to issue an EHCP. The local authority refused to secure a reassessment of your child or young person's needs. You disagree with something written in Section B, F or I of the plan, or the local authority has decided the plan is no longer necessary. You can only tick one box here. The box you tick determines which question you move on to. In some cases, you will need to say whether the decision you are appealing was made following an annual review of the EHCP. If you are appealing the content of the EHCP, you will need to specify which sections you are appealing. You can tick any boxes relating to the sections you are appealing. Section 9 is about the educational placement, so you only need to complete this section if you are appealing Section I. You will need to say whether you disagree with the named school or that the local authority have not named a school. If you have asked for a specific educational placement, you can tick yes and move to Section 9.4. If not, you can tick no and explain what kind of setting you would like in Section 9.3. For example, you could write that you are looking for a school with smaller class sizes, or a school that can offer a particular type of support. Section 9.4 is where you would specify which school you want the tribunal to consider. You will need to provide the name and address of the school, and you will need to give a rough date of when you contacted the school, and you can also include their response. That concludes part 1 of completing a SEND35 form. You can find the link to part 2 in the video description.